All right, let's dive right into this explainer. We're distilling Mark Manson's absolute best insights into a masterclass on keeping your sanity and your agency in our incredibly fractured modern world. I mean, have you felt like everything out there is just getting louder, more confusing, and honestly, infinitely more exhausting lately? You are definitely not alone in that. So today we're going to systematically break down exactly how to survive all this noise and build a rock-solid internal compass. And you know, the exact root of this modern overwhelm we're all feeling, it's the total collapse of a shared reality. We literally don't have a single unified source of truth anymore. There's no anchor. Instead, how you perceive reality right now is almost entirely dictated by the specific, highly fragmented information sources you're actively choosing to ingest every single day. So here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover surviving the information ecosystem, the 3 radical first principles, escaping the yes man trap, thriving in new media, and finally, the cost of your dreams. Let's jump right in. Starting with Section 1, surviving the information ecosystem, how we actually survive all this noise. Look, the absolute core of the problem is that our ancient mental machinery evolved for a small tribe. It definitely did not evolve for a global feed of hundreds of millions of people. For basically all of human history, your brain's comparison mechanism was designed to size up the 2 or 3 dozen folks in your immediate community, right? That was totally manageable. But today, technology has completely hijacked that exact same biological hardware. Now, it's forcing you to compare your everyday life against 300 million highly curated, picture-perfect lives on Instagram. No wonder we're all so stressed out. So, to protect your sanity here, you need a ruthless, and I mean absolutely ruthless, filtration mechanism for what you let into your brain. This list is exactly how you find reliable, neutral information. If you really want to cut through the noise, look for independent experts who aren't tied down by huge institutions or political tribalism. You want people who rely on hard evidence. And this is huge. Trust thinkers who actually have the humility to publicly change their minds when new evidence comes to light. Finally, make sure they're completely transparent about their financial incentives. You got to know who's paying the bills. Moving on to Section 2, 3 radical first principles. This is all about building your internal compass. Manson anchors his entire life on these 3 radical first principles: radical ownership, radical honesty, and radical acceptance. These essentially act as a rapid-fire framework so you can make decisions with speed and accuracy, even under intense pressure. Whenever the world starts spinning out of control, returning to these 3 concepts is going to ground you immediately. First up, radical ownership. This means taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you. It's tough, right? Because someone else might absolutely be to blame for a terrible situation you're in. But the responsibility to fix it, to actually respond to it, that is entirely yours. Honestly, nothing in your life truly clicks into place until you empower yourself by fully owning your time and your circumstances. This exact mindset actually stems from Manson's own childhood in Texas, where he realized pretty fast that the only things that seemed to matter were Jesus and football, and he wasn't really into either. He learned early on that blindly optimizing your life for social approval just leads to wild inauthenticity. Adopting a set of values just because the popular guy told you to, that's a total trap. He watched people act one way in church and act completely differently behind closed doors just to fit in. The big takeaway here is that to be genuinely authentic, your values have to come from your own radical ownership. You can't just borrow them from external pressure. All right, our next principle is radical honesty. Now, a quick caveat. This doesn't mean just word vomiting every single fleeting thought that pops into your head. Rather, it's about feeling a deep moral obligation to bluntly state any thoughts that are directly relevant to someone's long-term well-being, even if it causes some short-term friction. Yeah, it might cost you a few transactional relationships in the short run. You might upset someone for a minute, but over time, it builds the kind of unbreakable, deep trust that you just can't fake. But applying this honesty to yourself, that's the real challenge. Being radically honest in the mirror is the hardest part. Try routinely entertaining the incredibly uncomfortable thought that you might actually be the problem. It is amazingly clarifying. It's basically a stoic negative visualization. If a relationship or a business venture is totally struggling, sit down and genuinely ask yourself, okay, what if my behavior is the root cause here? Trying on that uncomfortable idea forces you to confront your own blind spots head on. And finally, we have radical acceptance. This one borrows heavily from Buddhist philosophy. Think about it. The amount of suffering we experience in life is highly correlated to our sheer unwillingness to just accept what simply is. You absolutely have to accept the unfair external events you can't control. But equally, and this is key, you have to accept those flawed internal tendencies and past mistakes that make you who you are. You just have to stop resisting reality. Which brings us to Section 3, Escaping the Yes Man Trap. We're talking about the very real dangers of sycophancy. So what happens when an AI just agrees with everything you say? We all know the danger of surrounding famous athletes or powerful leaders with yes men, right? People who just nod along and applaud. But here's the wild part. We are now actively building technology that does the exact same thing to all of us. Imagine an athlete completely detached from reality because their entourage only offers praise. Well, we're currently creating algorithms designed to do literally nothing but validate our existing thoughts. And this is leading to a genuinely terrifying phenomenon on the horizon known as AI psychosis. Recent data is actually showing mental breakdowns and psychotic breaks that are directly correlated to the algorithmic sycophancy of AI. Because these AIs are trained to please the user, they end up just validating deeply flawed, sometimes even paranoid assumptions. When Manson was building his own purpose-driven AI app, he realized he had to implement super strict evolve systems, essentially having a second AI actively monitoring the first one. He did this to ensure the AI acts as a chaperone that respectfully agitates you rather than just coddling your every thought. It's exactly like the difference between a bad psychologist and a good one. A bad psychologist just coddles you and tells you everything's going to be fine. But a good one? A good one increases the agitation just enough to make you actually confront your blind spots and grow. Because true growth absolutely requires friction. That means your technology, your teammates, and your mentors all need to be willing to hold up a mirror and respectfully agitate you. All right, Section 4, Thriving in New Media. Let's talk about how to actually succeed as a creator. 23. That is the number of employees Mark Manson's media company eventually grew to. He made a massive shift from that lean, solopreneur mindset when he realized that scaling true impact requires a dedicated team. For over a decade, he operated with literally just himself and a couple of contractors. But as the media landscape evolved into complex video production and sprawling platforms, he recognized you just cannot scale that kind of operation alone. We've all heard that cheesy phrase, teamwork makes the dream work. Well, Manson flips this entirely. Teamwork is the dream work. Look, AI is amazing. It can automate tasks, it can spit out a mediocre first draft in seconds, sure, but it cannot replicate the deep trust and philosophical alignment you get from human relationships built over multiple years in the trenches. And AI doesn't actually care about you. It literally only cares about processing tokens. A real trusted team, that is a completely irreplaceable asset. So if you're out there trying to cut through the noise as a creator, you gotta follow these rules. First off, do not try to be everywhere at once. Just pick one platform you genuinely enjoy and go deep. Next, focus on building an email list. Trust me, that remains your most reliable and highly profitable connection to your audience. Third, when someone actually gives you their attention, respect the click. Give them incredible value density. And finally, if you're on YouTube, you absolutely must nail the first 10 seconds, your title, and your thumbnail. If you don't package it perfectly, even your best ideas are going to go completely unseen. And that brings us to our final section. Section 5, the cost of your dreams. This is the ultimate reality check. Here's the harsh truth. Every single goal you have is a package deal. You can't just go to the buffet and select the shiny, fun benefits without also accepting the painful trade-offs that come on the side. Your dream spouse? That is the exact person you're inevitably going to have arguments with. Your absolute dream job. That's the very career that's going to have you lying awake at 2 a.m. stressing over the details. So the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this. You have to want the cost, not just the benefit. Choosing a new path means you are actively choosing your preferred flavor of struggle. You cannot magically avoid the pain of effort in this life. You simply get the privilege of selecting which mountain you actually want to endure climbing. I really want to leave you with that provocative thought today. Take a hard look at the cost of the life you want, own it radically, and ask yourself if you are truly, deeply ready to pay the bill. Because at the end of the day, when you look back at everything you've built, the only question that's going to matter is, was it worth it?
Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next one.